Hey everyone, it's Maddie.
I'm Bea, and today we're going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag.
This is essentially just a wrap-up of the first 6 months of the year and reprioritises some of the goals that we may have forgotten about.
We didn't get around to doing this video last year, so it's finally rolled around to being relevant again. There are a bunch of questions, so let's get to it. Number 1 is the best book you've read so far in 2017.
I'm gonna go with The Names They Gave Us by Emery Lord, and we talked about this in our May wrap-up part 1. It's so diverse, it deals with faith in a complex way, the parents are really present, and Lucy, the main character, really goes on an emotional journey from start to finish, and you can just see her character development. The setting is also really fun. As soon as anything gets taken into a summer camp or boarding school style situation, I'm in. This was an amazing read and we couldn't recommend it anymore, and it also helps that this cover is so beautiful.
And I've chosen None of the Above by I.W. Gregorio, and again, this was one we read in May. This is the story of Chrissy, who finds out she's intersex at 18 and it completely changes her whole world. I love this book, but I've already talked about it once and I thought that was pretty good, so I don't want to mess up by not really explaining it properly, so go and watch that May wrap up, and a review will also be linked in the description if you want to find out more of why you need to read this.
Question number 2 is what's the best sequel you've read so far this year?
My pick is Traitor to the Throne by Alwyn Hamilton, and when you like the sequel better than the first book, you know it's a winner. This is absolutely huge. It's significantly bigger than Rebel of the Sands, but I really loved it, even though everyone on Goodreads is kind of like, it's slow paced, nothing happens. I was invested and it did not feel like the almost 600 pages that it is.
And I'm gonna go with Forever Geek by Holly Smale. Even though it's only one of 2 sequels I've read so far this year, I know my sequel game is a bit sad this year, I would still pick it regardless because it's such a fantastic end to the series. This is essentially like a 9-book long series with a bunch of short stories in there as well, and it's one that we've been waiting for since the very beginning of Geek Girl, so we felt particularly attached to Harriet and every single character. It was lovely to see them all have such a happy and resolute ending.
Question 3 is a new release you haven't read but want to.
My pick is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. This was one that we were waiting for and it actually gets published in September, so it's quite a way to go, but we got this one in the mail just last week and it was so cute. It came in holographic paper, there were silvery stars and moons in there, so the packaging just makes me even more pumped to start reading this book. I'm actually surprised by how short it is as well, so hopefully me and Bea will get to it super soon.
And my pick is the much anticipated Our Dark Duet by V.E. Schwab. Maddie recently read this Savage song, so I'm going to have her catch me up on things because I'm not really in the position to do a reread of that, but either way I'm really excited because apparently it's more of a sequel to a prequel rather than it is a sequel to an original story, if that makes any sense. Basically it's going to be different to the first book.
Question 4 is what's your most anticipated release for the second half of the year?
And for this I can choose nothing other than Warcross by Marie Lu. Everyone is now holding it from BEA and I'm like, I want it so bad. I love Marie Lu. She's a complete author. I've accepted that I'll probably not be receiving an ARC at this point, but that's okay because I'm ready to chuck my money at this story because the Pinterest board is beautiful.
Excited and bitter.
Excited and bitter, that's what I am.
And the only book I have left is Quests for Glory by Soman Shinani, which is the start of a new trilogy in the School of Good and Evil universe. This series is my absolute favourite. I would continue to read these characters even if there were like 12 books in the series, and I hope there will be because I didn't even know this second series was happening and it's just completed my life knowing that it is. I'm so excited to see the characters more grown up in this one and how their trio dynamic works. Oh, I just can't wait.
Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment.
I've gone with When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. I'm so tragically disappointed with this one, and I hate being a hater of books that everyone else loves. It's really, really sad to know that I'm only one of 18 people that have given this book 1 star on Goodreads.
And I've gone with Our Own Private Universe by Robin Talley. Rainbow Fade on top of anything will make me 100% more likely to buy a book. But I will not be spending my own money on this story because the only thing it seemed to be good at was a lesbian sex guide. Other than that, the story was terrible on so many levels.
Question number 6 is what book was your biggest surprise?
I've chosen Beware That Girl by Teresa Toten, mostly because I still think about the ending of this book to this day, and I read it in January. I'm not going to give anything away, but if you love Gossip Girl, you need to be reading this.
And I've gone with Hello, Goodbye and Everything in Between by Jennifer E. Smith because I read this when I was reading the rest of her collected works and I'd already read 3 books and was yet to read Windfall, but that turned out to be a disappointing read too. So So this was a really surprising, like, glittery beacon in between all the books that felt quite samey and not really that special for a contemporary. But this one I really enjoyed, and I think that's all to do with the way it's told, taking you through different pit stops of a couple's relationship as they explore what parts were special to them of their town before they go off to university. And this story, although maybe you would question the relevancy of whether they needed to break up or not, which kind of hinges whether you enjoy the story or not, I was completely invested in it and thought it was super successful.
The next question is, who is your new favourite author, either debut or one that is just new to you for this year?
I've gone with Jenny McLaughlin, who wrote Stargazing for Beginners and the Ladybirds series that I've only read one book from, but I'm really impressed with how it's going so far and can't wait to get to the next books. I ended up giving this book 5 stars because it ticked every single box for a contemporary romance story for me. It included diversity and good friendship and STEM subjects, and mostly just focused on a girl who was passionate about something and also taking care of her family, and all of those elements mixed together were like the recipe for my perfect contemporary.
I've gone with Riley Redgate, author of Noteworthy, and although this isn't her debut and it's also not the first book I've read by this author, Noteworthy definitely solidified her as a favourite author, an auto-buy author, because I really enjoyed both stories. Her debut, 7 Ways We Lie, was really great at handling 7 perspectives, and one of the characters was even on the ace spectrum, which is always a big tick with me. And then Noteworthy was so different, but it had the same joy and just beautiful writing style. I can't wait to read whatever else she does next.
The next question is, who's your newest favourite character?
I've chosen Rainey from Silver Stars, in particular by Michael Grant. I have already experienced her in Frontlines, but I thought she was more of a background character. If you don't know already, this series follows 3 main girls, Rio, Frangie and Rainey, and in Silver Stars you really get way more of Rainey's perspective and she turns into a complete badass. So she is now the girl that I am probably rooting for the most out of all 3 of them, and I can't wait to see her progression next.
And this won't be a surprise to anyone that's seen the second half of our May wrap-up. I've gone with Wanda from The Host. She really surprised me. I loved seeing her in the film, but I think with the book it was way easier to see her as a separate character from Melanie because she had such a different voice. I really loved the way she interacted with everyone in the human colony, from romance to family, and just like winning people over was so lovely. She told such great stories, she was so strong. There's so much to love about her, so I'm really pleased to have read the book just to experience the character.
Question 10 asks you for a book that made you cry.
I've gone with Goodbye Days by Jeff Sentner, and this was pretty much a guarantee for me, seeing as he made me sob over The Serpent King, and this one had an even more emotional storyline and one that I was expecting, but it still managed to punch me right in the gut, and I cried multiple times throughout this story. Some happy tears, some absolutely distraught tears, but I'm really pleased with how his writing career is shaping up.
2017 actually had a pretty tear-filled beginning, considering I started by reading A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, but I felt more touched by the book I read after, which was Unboxed by Non Pratt. Even though this is a tiny story at like under 200 pages, and I mean significantly under, and yet the friendship was so beautiful and the messages it put across. It's not a particularly sad story because the sad thing happens pre the narrative of the book. I was just so overcome by all of the emotions expressed that I was like bawling the whole way through.
Next is a book that made you happy.
It's the only repetition we have, but I'm gonna say Forever Geek by Holly Smale because again I thought this was an absolutely perfect conclusion, and it was a really nice time to just reflect on all of the books in the Geek Girl series, and we did a reread of all of them and it was just a really emotional and happy time.
I've gone with the Murder Most Unladylike series by Robin Stevens because I read this at a moment where I'd just finished reading loads of books from NetGalley and from the library, and it felt like my TBR was being structured for me, and then Bea picked out this book for me and she was just like, read it because you know you'll love it, and I did, and I think that was so great to read a book that I could just really enjoy without any strings attached. These books really instilled like a new love of reading for me, especially since it was the second book I read this year, and I can't wait to continue the series because I think every one I read is going to feel like that.
The next question is, what is the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year?
I've chosen Wing Jones by Catherine Webber because I absolutely love the colours of this cover. I think it perfectly illustrates what's the main focus of the book. The font is so pretty, making out of laces, and then this ombre fade continues all around the book and it even has sprayed edges. So just every angle you look at this book from, it's pretty. pretty.
I've gone with my arc of Strange the Dreamer, which I think is particularly beautiful and even more beautiful than the finished copy because it's got all this font on it, and then on the back it's like these cute little just snippets of what the story's about with the tiny golden moths, and I think it's so gorgeous, like all in blue, gorgeous blue brick. So it's just like extra special to me that I got the opportunity to read this book before its release because I adore Laini Taylor and I ended up loving this book. It's also signed and dedicated to us, which makes it like extra special.
The next question are, what are some of the books that you need to read before the end of the year?
From the video where we picked out 5 books that we needed to read in 2017, I think we each only have 1 book left, and mine is Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. We recently bought The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and Maddie said that this was sort of the YA version of that.
And then my final book from that list is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. This is my only Morgan Matson book that I haven't read, and me and B are planning on rereading all of her Morgan Matson titles, probably sometime in August, so it might be a little while until I get to this, and it is quite a brick, but I'm really excited because I feel like my expectations well lowered because it wasn't B's favourite, but I'm ready to go into it and see what happens.
And the final question asks for your favourite Bookish community member.
So my pick is Julie from Pages and Pens. I found her channel earlier this year and I've absolutely loved watching all of her old videos and catching up on the new ones. She posts really frequently, we have quite similar reading tastes, and she always engages with people in the comments, which I really like. So I just enjoy all of her content and will make sure to leave a link to her channel in the description so you can check her out too.
And I've chosen Rosie Freckle on Twitter and Rosie Freckle Reads on her WordPress blog, so I'll leave links to both of those things in the description. She is an absolutely adorable person. She's always giving out great recommendations and she's really kind to the whole community.
So that's it for the mid-year freakout tag.
We're gonna tag Julie and Rosie to do this on their blog or YouTube channel. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye!